Yes, sir.
Go.
Your religion is a disease.
Just go. It's our time now.
Preaching to the wrong crowd.
False God.
1,600 kids been killed in Palestine. 1,600.
Nobody wants to hear you.
He doesn't consider yourself to be a
Just shut up. Just shut up. Listen. Shut up.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
You support criminals, you're criminals.
End the siege of Gaza now!
You should carry one of those.
You're
End the
criminals.
siege of Gaza now! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine.
Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Free Palestine!
No, you can get the hell out of here. Oh, I don't need to get the heck out of here. If you want to get the hell out of here, then get the fuck out of here. Oh, you're not. You're
Long live the Intifada!
I'm swearing at you.
He's nice.
Long live the Intifada!
He's accusing my children. What thought I could speak to?
My name is Dania. I'm from Haifa, Palestine, and I am part of SBHR UBC.
This is sort of the
We
wrong
have put this
context.
protest
Is a
together
genocide
with the
going
help
on
of
right
many
now?
social activists
The
in
Jews need to
Vancouver,
repent, and
not
so do
only to
these
bring
people.
awareness
Everybody
about the
needs to repent.
genocide
So,
happening
what
in
version is that?
Palestine, but also to
King James,
protest against
King
our
James,
government's
God has
support for
preserved his word.
Israel.
Why do you think there's a
Canada
difference
is
between the
compliant.
New Way and the King
Our
James
tax
version?
money is
Okay.
used towards a massacre.
God has preserved
Our
his word.
local
Where in
members
the
of
Bible is
parliament
it
are
wrong,
supporting
sir?
Israel,
tell me.
and we
Saying
want
that
to
there
let
are
people
many
know that
versions of the
we
Bible.
do not
Which
show
one is
support
correct?
for them.
All the
And they
same
are
thing from the very
definitely
beginning
not
with
allowed
Noah
to speak falsely
and
in our
Adam and
name.
Eve. There was when they rebelled
I
against
blame
God, there
our
was a
government,
sacrifice
I
for the
blame
covering
the
of sins.
US,
With
and
Noah,
most
there
of
was a
all, I
sacrifice.
blame all the
Abraham was
Arab
about to
leaders in
sacrifice
the
his
Middle
son.
East
God
for the
provided a
genocide
substitute.
occurring in
The
Palestine.
prophet Isaiah, he
Shame.
said, "We all like sheep have gone astray; each of us has gone to his own way, and the Lord has laid
We
on
are gathered
him
here
the
today as
iniquity of
one,
us all."
as humans
And then
from
John the
different
Baptist
backgrounds and
pointed to
religions
Jesus
and
Christ and
races
said,
to fight
"Behold,
this
the
cause
Lamb
together.
of God who takes
I
away
will
the
now
sins of
pass
the
over
world."
the mic to my
So
partner,
the Bible, from the
Murad,
very
to
beginning
introduce
to
himself.
end, is consistent.
It's not. I
It
can
is,
point you to a
Matt.
100-page document showing
Okay.
the inconsistencies
And
between
who's
those
that by? And how do you? Why do you put
Walter
trust in
Beat.
that?
Walter Beat.
Okay,
because,
I can point you
I
to
can demonstrate
Harvard
it with the
professor
several,
Dr.
versions.
Simon Greenleaf, who was Jewish and he became a believer in Jesus Christ. And so there you go. So just
Not
scholar
totally,
against scholar,
yeah.
right, sir?
Yeah, well, that's but there is evidence. There is evidence. That's what I'm going on. Evidence.
Plenty of evidence that
Yes.
we're all sinners. Plenty of evidence.
Oh, no, I don't
died
deny
and moved
that.
again.
But it also says you work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Welcome Carlo Marling from
The Bible says that Christians are God's ambassadors as though God is making
Carlo Marling,
through us.
community to come up and speak.
I am known by Carol Martin. His Canadian system gave me a white name. And Ojibwe gave me the name Spirit Tree Woman. Do you know, years ago in the 60s, I remember, I want to try and show parallel as to why a lot of our people are where they are right now. I remember being brought up, they talking about Israel and the Jews and the Holocaust. They did so much work to brainwash, assimilate, and colonize us in how we think, how we acted, the things we did. But you know what? It takes a strong Indigenous woman to come and stand and say, I am no longer looking through white eyes. I am looking through Indigenous eyes and I see the slaughter that's taking place with my people. Not only here on this occupied land they call Canada, but in the Middle East. We cannot stay silent. We cannot rely on the government to take care of our people. We have to do it. You, all standing here, you are the leaders of your community. Continue this struggle. Continue to fight every day. Because look at the conditions they put my people in. My people are down, but they've survived so much. And it's with this strength that I bring courage, strength, honor, pride. We stand for something. And I say, long live Palestine. Long live the indigenous people. May they know that we are here standing in solidarity with them. We have gotten up. We've been kicked down so many times. But look at where we're standing. Look at the strength. We care. That's why we're here. Canada and Israel have committed the biggest crime against humanity. And they should be ashamed of themselves. I'm very honored to be here to speak for my people. Because when you see the devastation, you see the parallels here from Canada to Palestine, the indigenous women, the missing and murdered women, the children, our elders, total destruction. How can they say it's an equal war when they're using so many bombs against Gaza and Palestine? I say same on Israel. Do they not have a conscience? This is a moment, and I'm really honored. And I say I'm very honored that you're listening to me speak, because what they're doing here in Canada, they're doing 100 times worse in Palestine. My partner is from Palestine. He's from Lebanon, and he has a difficult time. But he tells me, you know, when he was sent here to Canada, they changed his name, they changed his date of birth, total displacement. That's what they did to my grandfather when he came from Alaska. This is serious. They're trying to kill the race of our indigenous people. I pray for courage for my partner. I pray for courage for the people in the Middle East. And I pray for more strength, for more people to stand up and not be silent about what is going on. It is time to break the silence. It is time to stand here and say you can no longer hurt my people. You can no longer hurt those who I care for. Canada and Israel has to stop the genocide that we know they've implemented that in their system. And you know who I say is the strongest warriors out there? People standing there in the Middle East fighting. And you give them courage and strength because of what you're doing here. My hand's up to you. Thank you.
My father is Abdullah Sha'ban from Jahula in northern Palestine. His father is Mustafa Sha'ban from the same village. My grandfather was expelled from Palestine in 1948 and deprived from having any access to his village and to his farms. And he passes down the message from one generation to another. And here I am, standing in front of you, expressing my support and my love and my pride in my people, the Palestinian people. We should be extremely aware that we stand here as humans, not just as Palestinians. There should be no complicity in war crimes from anybody. There should be no excuses for war crimes. There should be no excuses for genocide. We stand as humans today to say, end the occupation of Palestine. I know it's really hot today, but let's increase the temperature a little bit by the ferocity and the tenacity and the courage of our voices and say, free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
I would like to introduce my friend Sid Schneid from the Independent Jewish Voices.
Thanks very much, Omar. The gathering of people here today delivers a clear message. You don't have to be an Arab or a Muslim to support the people of Gaza. You just have to be a human being. We are all here to express our solidarity with the people of Gaza and our moral outrage against the government of Israel for the unspeakable crimes it is committing against them. Shame. I am a member of the National Steering Committee of Independent Jewish Voices Canada. That's right, Independent Jewish Voices. Like other people, more and more Jews around the world are standing up to say that we are sickened by Israel's crimes. In the context of this crisis, Canadian politicians are playing a disgraceful role. While the Harper Tories and Trudeau Liberals give unqualified support to Israel, the NDP seems to have lost its voice.
Shame!
With our political representatives failing us, it's up to us to change their position on this issue. The people of Gaza have suffered enough. What should we be doing? We should be following the lead of Palestinian civil society, which put out a call in 2005 for people around the world to generate pressure on Israel by mounting an escalating campaign of boycott, divestment, and sanctions until this BDS campaign should be mounted until Israel ends its occupation and colonization of all Arab lands conquered in 1967 and dismantles its apartheid wall, recognizes the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality, and respects, protects, and promotes the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and properties. I'm proud to tell you today that Independent Jewish Voices has incorporated the founding principles of the BDS movement into our basis of unity. More and more individuals and organizations are joining up. 2 years ago, the United Church of Canada, this country's largest Christian denomination, passed a resolution calling for the boycott of products originating in occupied Palestinian territories. In June of this year, the Presbyterian Church in the U.S. voted to divest from companies that enable Israel's occupation of Palestine. The Ontario wing of the Canadian Union of Public Employees has endorsed BDS.
Yes!
The Congress of South African Trade Unions is intensifying its BDS campaign and is calling for the expulsion of Israel's ambassador. There is an international petition circulating calling for the International Soccer Federation, known as FIFA, to suspend Israel until it respects the human rights of Palestinians and observes international law. We need all of our churches, synagogues, mosques, gurdwaras, trade unions, sports clubs, social clubs, and other groups to take up the Palestinian cause. If you are a member of one of these groups, please take up the issue in your organization. Convince others to take up a stand for justice. And if you need help on any of this, please feel free to approach any of the sponsoring organizations of today's demonstration. Actors and musicians have a role to play. According to Hollywood Reporter newspaper, celebrities including Jon Stewart, director Jonathan Demme, Tori Amos, Rob Schneider, Kim Kardashian, Mark Ruffalo, Anthony Bourdain, Roger Waters, NBA stars Dwight Howard and Amare Stoudemire, Italian goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon, Mia Farrow, scientist Stephen Hawking, and singer Annie Lennox are among those who have weighed in to support the people of Gaza and criticize the Israeli government's behavior. Irish musician Sinead O'Connor canceled the scheduled performance in Israel, saying she was doing so in order to adhere to the cultural boycott of Israel. Movie star stars Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem have signed an open letter denouncing Israeli genocide. Director Pedro Almodovar and other representatives of the Spanish film industry are urging the European Union to condemn the bombing of Palestinian civilians. Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, El Salvador, and Peru. All of these countries have recalled their ambassadors from Israel. In closing, I'd like to say we have to leave today's demonstration, each of us committing to take action to put pressure on Israel and to change the shameful position of Canada's politicians. Please join me to shout out, "Justice for Palestine!
Justice for Palestine!
Stop the assault on Gaza!
Stop the assault on Gaza!
Lift the siege!
Lift the siege!
End the occupation!
End the occupation!
BDS!
BDS!
Free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
So our next speaker is Gabriel Matt, anti-Zionist, a long-time supporter of Palestinian and national rights. Please welcome him.
Thank you. Actually, the name is Gabor Mate. Thanks very much. I don't need to tell you what's happening over there. I think anybody who's got eyes, who's got ears, they can see, they can hear. Anybody who's got a heart that's open, they can feel. I'd like to say a few words about the utter and almost fathomless hypocrisy that surrounds this situation. Yesterday in the New York Times there was the headline, "Truce or ceasefire shattered, Israeli soldier captured." The headline could have said, "Truce shattered, 90 Palestinians killed." But they don't do that. Because it's clear that from the point of view of the mainstream media, there's one side in this conversation. The other side doesn't even exist. Utter hypocrisy. As regards this captured soldiers, if indeed the soldier is captured and not killed in battle, the American Secretary of State, John Kerry, issues a statement demanding his immediate release. In Israeli jails, there are thousands of Palestinian citizens, Palestinian people, who are not even charged with any crime, or not even suspected of anything violent. They're simply opponents of the occupation. There are thousands of these people in jail who are held there, very often without charges, without trial. John Kerry or our own government has not called for the release of these people. Utter hypocrisy. At the beginning of this horrific assault on Gaza, or even before, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, makes a comment. He said, "The other side, they don't believe in life. We do." And he demonstrates his belief in life by the murder of over 1,000 civilian people in Gaza and the utter devastation of an already deprived and devastated little enclave. And this hypocrisy is nowhere challenged in our media or amongst our politicians. That is their hypocrisy, and in this country, our own. In Tel Aviv, there's a military building. I think it's called Kriya. I may not have the Hebrew right. This military building is where the bombing of Gaza is coordinated, is where military activities are planned, and from where the orders are issued. This military building in Tel Aviv is right next to a major hospital in Tel Aviv. Now, are we accusing the Israelis of using civilian shields by putting this facility in the middle of Tel Aviv? Of course not. Utter hypocrisy. The sad fact is that people are outraged when we talk about Zionism as racism. Well, Zionism may not be racism in its theory, But let's look at it in practice. The media keeps talking about the Hamas charter that calls for the destruction, if you will, of the state of Israel, which to the Palestinians is simply a colonial occupying state. What nobody talks about is that the charter of Israel's governing party, the Likud party, absolutely denies the existence or the right of the Palestinians to a state of their own. They call for the free settlement of Jews from the sea to the Jordan River. Nobody calls upon the Likud party, which actually holds the reins of government in Israel, to give up their charter. That's only about Hamas. Again, utter hypocrisy. The fact remains that as I stand here today, and as I'm giving you this talk here today, I could get on an airplane tomorrow, go to Israel, claim the right of return, and be made a citizen immediately, with no questions asked, because I'm Jewish. The right of return, meaning that maybe 2,000 years ago, some of my ancestors happened to live there. The Palestinian speakers amongst us, including my friend Hana Kawas, who I think is from Haifa, but somewhere in Palestine, he cannot even visit. He cannot even visit. What about this right of return? If the principle that people expelled from their homeland should have the right to return, why not Hannah and why me? Now, if that's not racism, exactly what is it? Benjamin Netanyahu, in a speech announcing the onslaught to Gaza, or no, possibly at the funeral of the 3 settler youth that were killed, which incidentally they blamed on Hamas, knowing full well that Hamas had nothing to do with it, as has since transpired. But Benjamin Netanyahu made this speech and he said that they glorified terrorists. They named streets and squares after them. We don't do that. The reality is that in Israel, there's any number of squares and streets named after people called Shamir, after people called Begin, after people called any number of Israeli generals guilty of war crimes, after people who were engaged in specific acts of terror against civilian populations. And yet Netanyahu is capable of making the statement with a straight face, and nobody in the press challenges him. Again, utter hypocrisy. So I think we've got work to do. The population in Canada, it's great to see all these people here. It's encouraging, it's heartening to see all these people here. It's also heartening to see that although Israel is still capable of carrying out their war crimes against the Palestinian population, they're no longer doing so behind the total screen of impunity. The world is watching. The politicians are not, the leaders are not, the media are not, and they all have their own reasons for their silence and for their self-willed blindness. But more and more people are awake. And as Sid also said, more and more Jewish people are awake. I know that 20, 30 years ago, when there was a few of us in the Jewish community who raised our voices in support of some justice in Palestine, we felt very alone, very isolated. That's no longer the case. There are significant organizations now, both within and outside the Jewish community, who are dedicated in bringing the truth to people here. And I'm telling you, and my final comment is this, that it's up to us here who know what's going on, to spread the news, to tell people the truth, to direct people to the right sources. It's not possible anymore in the days of the internet for anybody to say, I didn't know and I had no way of knowing. People have all kinds of ways of knowing. All they have to do is to go to news programs that tell the truth. All they have to do is to listen to the Israeli historians who told the story of the Nakba and the massacre and expulsion of the Palestinians in 1947, 1948. All they have to do is listen to voices like Rabbi Henry Siegman, who's former head of the American Jewish Congress and former head of the American Council of Synagogues, who tells us exactly the way it is. to Israeli historians who, like Ilan Pape, who tell the truth about what's going on, to Israeli journalists like Gideon Levy and Amir Haas, who daily tell their people the truth about what's going on. So no longer can anybody claim, no longer can anyone say with a straight face, oh, I didn't know, I had no way of knowing. You might have said that in Germany 60 years ago, 70 years ago. You cannot say it today. But there's a lot of confusion out there. People are genuinely confused. The media does not tell the truth. People are busy. It's up to all of us as individuals to speak to as many people as we can and to make our voices heard in as many forms as possible to bring people the truth. Because I'm telling you, anything that's based on such a lie, anything that's based on such hypocrisy, anything that's based on such oppression, and the Bible tells us this as well, simply cannot endure. But it's up to us to keep the light of truth flickering and burning ever more brightly. Thank you.
Free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the siege of Gaza now!
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 So our next speakers is Shem Energy, South Asian Network of Solarism and Democracy. Shem, please.
I'm proud to bring a message of solidarity from the South Asian Network for Secularism and Democracy, an organization of South Asian people living here. First of all, let me say that many of us feel rage, frustration, helplessness every day in the face of this genocidal attack on Palestinian people. And it is good that we can come out and we can do what we can to protest, to express our outrage, to let people know everywhere that we stand with the people of the world everywhere who are doing the same as us, protesting this absolute crime against humanity, this crime, war crime, this absolute and utter violation of every human value. I want to read you a resolution that South Asian Network for Secularism and Democracy passed at its annual general meeting on 26th of July. It says, whereas Israel is an occupying power in Palestine with responsibility in international law to protect civilians, whereas it has imposed a siege and blockade on Gaza since 2006, subjecting its population, 80% of whom are refugees from lands occupied by Israel, to extreme deprivation and hardship, whereas Israel has repeatedly subjected Palestinians to collective punishment in violation of international law, most notably in December 2008, when it killed more than 1,300 civilians and destroyed thousands of homes as well as scores of schools, mosques, and hospitals. Whereas its recent assault on Gaza, beginning with the bombardment of July 8th and the subsequent ground attack of July 18th, Israel has killed more than 1,000, it says in the resolution. Today's figure is more than 1,600 Palestinians, most of whom are women and children, has bombed children playing on the beach, and civilians sheltering in a UN school, despite being given the coordinates of the school. And whereas the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva has found Israel potentially guilty of war crimes and launched an international inquiry into it, therefore be it resolved that we demand that Israel immediately stop its attack on Gaza, allow relief efforts to reach the residents, and enable the UNHRC to carry on its investigation into war crimes. We further demand that Israel lift its blockade of Gaza to ensure the free movement of Palestinians in and out of the Gaza Strip, as well as unlimited import and export of goods to enable residents to rebuild their lives and enter into negotiations in good faith to end the occupation of Palestinian lands. Finally, be it resolved that Sanssad endorses the Palestinian call and the global movement for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the State of Israel and its institutions until it complies with international law and Palestinian rights. In addition, as Sanssad is an organization of South Asians living in Canada, be it resolved that we hold the government of Canada complicit in Israel's violations of international law and war crimes because of its unqualified support of Israel's actions, and demand that it change its policy and call on Israel to obey international law, respect human rights and the democratic rights of Palestinians, to elect the government of their choice and seek the unity of their leadership. Inqilab Zindabad, Palestine Zindabad.
Wow, I am really honored to be part of this resistance movement, which is going to be intensified more and more, I hope, and until the Palestinian people are free from the aggression and oppression and ethnic cleansing perpetrated by Israel's fascist state. I bring a message here from the Palestinian Defense Committee, so I will read it. In solidarity with the people of Palestine, down with fascist, aggressive and oppressive state of Israel. East Indian Defense Committee denounces the perpetual attack on the people of Gaza by the state of Israel. This current round of Israel's barbaric violence has resulted in over 1,000 Palestinians killed, innumerable wounded, and a whole nation of Palestine violated. The overwhelming majority of the killed and wounded are civilians, children, women, and the elderly, none of whom have proven to have any links with any armed groups. With this message, we want to reach out to the Palestinian people to express our solidarity with their struggle for freedom in their own homeland. We are also in solidarity with Palestinian people's liberation from colonial oppression and an end to ethnic cleansing. We share the pain of Palestinian people with no less hurt. We denounce the Canadian state for shamelessly siding with Israel while it violates international law and continues the massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. The Canadian ruling classes are always too eager to please Israel Canada was the first country in the world to refuse recognition to Hamas, democratically elected by the Palestinian people in 2006.
Yes.
In 2009, Canada was the only vote against condemnation of Israel, voted 33-1 in favor, by 47 members United Nations Human Rights Council, 13 abstentions for all European Union countries. Another first was not too long ago. On June 6, 2014, Canada became the first country in the world to be in violation of international law of citizenship by enacting Bill C-24. We at the East Indian Defence Committee strongly believe that all the people's struggle must support each other in the sense of true international solidarity. We also believe that our solidarity with Palestinian people is of extreme importance to develop our own struggle. The East Indian Defence Committee is an anti-racist, anti-imperialist and democratic people's organization active since 1973. We have always believed and said out loud that Zionism is racism. We demand that Israel must immediately cease its attack on the people of Gaza, lift the illegal blockade, stop the apartheid in the occupied West Bank, and recognize the right of the Palestinian people for their homeland, which has been denied to them since 1948. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
Thank you, friends.
Our next speaker is Claudia from Red Sparks.
I think I have said something.
Greetings, sisters and brothers.
Palestine!
will never be defeated. Gaza, don't you cry.
Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Yeah, there's no more than that.
Genocide!
Wake up, Gaza's calling.
Wake up, innocent dying!
Wake up, innocents dying.
My family's gone! My home is gone! My family's gone! My family's gone! You will stay in Palestine! You will stay in Palestine! My home is gone! My home is gone! My family's gone! My family's gone! You will stay in Palestine! You will stay in Palestine! Help us leave Gaza! Help us leave Palestine! Help us leave Palestine! Save the children of Palestine!
Save the children of Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
Let's occupy CBC and see how that fails!
Say something to Harper. Harper, don't support the terrorists.
Impeach Harper.
Thousands of Vancouverers to the streets in Vancouver. On July 10th, July 12th, July 19th, and July 25th to protest Israeli war crimes and the complicity of the Canadian. This pro-Israeli clip was 2.25 seconds. To be exact, 2.22 seconds. That's 6 times what they reported about the 4 demonstrations that we had in Vancouver. Saturday, August 2nd at the Art Gallery, and we will march to your headquarters at 3:15. We are hoping to hand you this letter and have a delegation meet with you or a CBC representative to deal with this one-sided coverage that smacks of racism against the Palestinian people. This coverage smacks of racism against the Palestinian people. We hope to hear from you, and we CC'd the CBC Ombudsman and the CRDC. They responded to us last night and they said the news editor is out of town, but they're gonna send someone to receive this letter. We didn't see anyone yet here to receive this letter. If not, we're gonna put it at the door and let it be on record that this is not the way to treat Canadians. This is not the way to use our taxpayers' money to support war crimes, aggression, ethnic cleansing, and apartheid. Thank you. We want government CBC! 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 Shame on Harper! Shame on Harper! Shame on Harper! Shame on Harper! Shame on Egypt! Shame on Egypt! Shame on Sisi! Shame on Sisi! Shame on Saudi Arabia! Shame on Saudi Arabia! Shame on Saudi Arabia! Shame on Saudi Arabia! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Louder! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! We want the right to this! There's children dying! We want to save the children of Palestine! We want to hear your voice loud and clear! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! see. Palestine will be free. Long live Palestine. Long live Palestine.
Harper Beebe, end this game. Harper
Beebe, end this game.
You will die in total shame.
You will die in total shame.
Harper Beebe, end this game.
Harper Beebe, end this game.
You will die in total shame.
You will die in total shame.
Hey Harper, what do you say?
Hey Harper, what do you say?
Let those Gaza children play.
Let those Gaza children play.
Hey Harper, what do you say?
Hey Harper, what do you say?
Let those Gaza children play.
Let the Gaza children play.
We are Canadian, we are free.
We are Canadian, we are free.
Harper doesn't represent me.
Harper does not represent me.
We are Canadian, we are free.
We are Canadian, we are free.
Harper doesn't represent me.
Harper doesn't represent me.
Free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Guys, let's take it back to our gallery. Loud and clear. Free Palestine.
Free
Palestine.
Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Go back to the outside.
Yep. We're going. Palestine will be free. Long live Palestine. Long live Palestine. Free Palestine. Viva Palestina! Viva Palestina! sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry.
Don't you cry.
Palestine will never die.
Palestine will never die.
Gaza, don't you cry.
Palestine will never die. Free Palestine! Gaza, don't you cry! Palestine will never die! Palestine will never die! Long live Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Free Palestine! Woo-hoo! Woo! Palestine will never die! Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry! Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry! Palestine will never die! Palestine will never die! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Free Palestine! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Free Palestine! حتى العلم
That's not fair. We need them to hear the word. They can't just hear one side. They have to be loud and clear. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! End the siege of Gaza now!
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 Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine! exist. Palestine will exist. March, resist. Palestine will exist.